So one thing I never did quite understand is why some news becomes mainstream media and why they talk about certain things, but other things they tend to ignore. It's like the mainstream media has a narrative they just want to push, and they're all fake news and propagandists. But we know that's not true, right? Moving along. Zimbabwe's government shut down the internet after fuel price protests turned deadly. You might have heard about this. Well, mainly because A, they shut down the internet, and B, because, well, mainstream media is not touching this with a 10-foot pole. I wonder why, but let's jump into it. So on January the 15th, 2019, after 5 people were killed in widespread protests against record fuel prices in Zimbabwe, the country's government responded by deploying the military and shutting down the internet, because we can't have people talking, because that would just be a bummer. On Monday, the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions and Activists called for a national shutdown in protest over the fuel price hikes. Businesses and schools were deserted as protesters took to the streets. Now, Zimbabwe's government deployed the military to quell protests clash between civilians and security forces, leading to death. At least 5 people, more than 200 people were also arrested. The state security minister said on social media there was unconfirmed reports of looting. So that's basically the gist of what happened, and that was a couple of days ago. So it's a good thing that at the end of the day that they haven't gone through and this hasn't happened again, because that would shit. We'll get to that in a sec. Zimbabwe blocks Facebook, WhatsApp, and Twitter amid crackdown. So I believe this was actually from today's. So let's talk about this first. Zimbabwe orders second internet shutdown in a week of deadly protests. So Zimbabwe has constricted internet access amid a week of deadly protests following an increase in gasoline prices. Econet Wireless Zimbabwe, the country's largest mobile phone operator, says early Friday that it had been directed by the government to shut down all internet access for a second time in a week. We were served with another directive for total shutdown of the internet until further notice, Econet says in a statement, Reuters reports. The carrier noted that not all networks and providers in Zimbabwe had suspended services. Later Friday, Econet said it received orders to restore access except for some social media applications, Reuters reported. Critics say the government wants to limit internet access to halt the circulation of images showing security forces responding violently to protesters. Photographs show a protester with a broken leg, another with a split lip, and others of protest being arrested. Activists were challenging the restrictions in court. The Zimbabwe Human Rights NGO Forum says the internet restriction is unwarranted, unjustifiable in the circumstances, and as a tool of repression meant to mask the massive human rights violations which the state was preparing to commit. Boy, I wonder why the left don't want to talk about this. My narrative. But anyway. The protests began after the government more than doubled the price of gasoline. Zimbabwe now has the most expensive gas in the world. The government has confirmed 3 Zimbabweans died in the protest, Reuters reported. The NGO Forum says at least 12 people were killed. So, a bit of discrepancy there between the two, and I'm probably more likely to believe the NGO Forum, which is weird for me, but, rather than the Zimbabwean government. Look, I think the number's probably somewhere in between. Probably around 6 to 9, but anyway. As NPR for Quit Actor reports from Johannesburg, a Zimbabwean medical association says the doctors have treated more than 150 people since Monday, some with gunshot wounds, others with dog bites. The United Nations says it's received reports from the security forces using live ammunition, conducting door-to-door searches and arresting more than 600 people nationwide, including opposition leaders and activists. Quote, we call on the government to find ways of engaging with the population about their legitimate grievances and stop cracking down against protesters, a spokesman for the UN High Commission for Human Rights said in a statement. You tell them, they're going to take notice of you, right? A prominent Zimbabwean pastor, Evan Makwara, was arrested during the protests. His lawyer, Beatrice Matwa, told AFP on Thursday that her client is accused of subverting a constitutional elected government. Oh, jeez. I think that's by punishment, isn't it? But anyway, the allegations are that he said the government must attend to economic challenges and that people must be paid in US dollars, she says. We don't know what this is criminal about that. Everybody is saying that, so who is saying the subject to arrest? And yeah, it sort of keeps going on for a little bit about that. And obviously, as for the internet, so Zimbabwe blocks Facebook, WhatsApp, and Twitter amid crackdown. But don't worry, Twitter's still talking about this. Zimbabwe has blocked Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp messaging app amid crackdown on days of violent protests. A coalition of local human rights groups says that at least 12 people have been killed and many more beaten and tortured by security forces this week. The Zimbabwe Human Rights NGO Forum accused the authorities of cutting off the internet to mask the massive human rights violations. Don't be so. There's no way they would do that. Moving on. The protests were sparked on Monday by a sharp rise in the price of fuel. So, yeah, that happened apparently. Look, at the end of the day, what's my view? What's my takeaway on all this? To be honest, am I surprised that the Zimbabwean government has shut down the internet? No, not at all. This is the same Zimbabwean government that, you know, had a bit of a history of getting rid of the white population a few years back, and well, the country hasn't quite recovered since then, has it? Look, at the end of the day, look, if you're in South Africa, leave. Just get out. Just get out of there. But look, yeah, look, at the end of the day, guys, obviously, as for this, I'm not surprised they're shutting down the internet and the apps and stuff. They obviously want to go through and get rid of, or stop people talking. They don't want people to report on it. Whoopsie. But yeah, like I say, look, at the end of the day, as for this, yeah, I would be very surprised if the government wasn't being a little bit authoritarian. And when I mean a little bit, I mean, you know, like Hitler sort of authoritarian. So yeah, I would say yes, this is definitely that they're cracking down on the internet because they don't want people talking about this. They don't want photos like this to be released on the internet. So it'd be a real bummer if I used it as a thumbnail image, wouldn't it? But like I say, look, at the end of the day, yeah, I would not be surprised by this at all. But I don't know. I find it really convenient. The mainstream media seems to have not talked about this. No one seems to be really discussing this. I wonder why. They might be talking about Zimbabwe and why the protesters over there are rioting, similar to the yellow vests over in France and similar to the yellow vests over in the UK and all the other European countries, and why, like, even Australia had their own protests regarding immigrants and crime and stuff like that. It seems like there's a bit of a populist uprising all around the world that's sick of the elite bullshit. But hey, you know, France is all about fuel prices, right? Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, obviously the media is not touching this because of the fact that it's the black population rising up against their government. You know, it's a little bit racist, you know, if you talk about it. Also, they don't want, you know, to talk about the people rising up against the elites and the governments of the world because, well, you know, if we start talking about this, we might fuel it. People might go through and actually encourage it or whatever if they see other people doing it. Monkey see, monkey do sort of thing. But like I say, look, at the end of the day, yeah, it's just a case of the fact that they just don't want people going through and repeating what France and all these other European countries have done. So yeah, at the end of the day, I'm not surprised that the governments and the mainstream media are ignoring this. So I do wonder how long before people like Phil DeFranco report on it. But he mightn't touch this one, the 10-foot pole, either. He's been far left these days. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on this? Why do you think the mainstream media is not touching this? Why do you think that the people in Zimbabwe are rising up? Do you think that this is about fuel prices? Do you think that this will evolve into something like the yellow vests? Do you support Zimbabwe rising up against their government? Do you think they have a point? Have you heard about this and just not known about it, or did you not hear about this? Yeah. But anyway, you know what I mean. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If this video has been helpful, please smack a like. If you're new, channel welcome and subscribe. Don't forget to share this, because there's no way YouTube will share this video because it's all the anti-government sort of stuff. So, yeah, smash that like button and also click that share button. Apart from that, guys, I'll see you in the next demonetized video from YouTube. Have a great day and enjoy.